morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Well, all week long, I knew I had to do this talk, so I said, I kept asking Spirit, what would you like me to talk about? And I kept getting no answers. As you know, these earthquakes affect me terribly. So about 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon, I fell apart once again for a couple of hours. So I didn't focus on anything to do my talk this morning, but I was directed at 8:30 this morning to go on my computer. and I was directed to a specific website where I get a lot of information. And often it's relevant things that are going on in the world, and I want to share part of what I won't give you all of their talk. I'm going to share some bits with you because I feel this is important, and then share other insights that I have on it, okay? So it's called Courage Does Not Always Roar. I thought that was appropriate. By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. Benjamin Franklin. I like that one. Sometimes we can get blindsided by the events that happen in our lives. Certified financial planner Rebecca Kennel shares the story of two of her clients, Pam and Tom, whose lack of planning could have been averted, with the courage to take responsibility to the future. Both in their 50s, Pam and Tom had not really done any long-term financial planning. Theirs was a second marriage, and Tom knew he should have a will or trust, but somehow he just didn't get to it. Soon after Tom and Pam's meeting with Rebecca, Tom had a bicycle accident. The resulting x-rays revealed lung cancer, and he passed away 3 months later with the will kit still in his closet. How many have a will today? Without a will, a bitter probate battle developed. Tom and Pam had only been married a year and a half, and the life insurance policy that Tom held listed his daughter rather than Pam as the beneficiary. The result? Probate lasted 2 years, causing Pam a great deal of stress and costing her $30,000 in court costs. Suffering from lack of sleep and distraught by the double impact of the death of her spouse and fighting with his daughter, Pam finally turned to antidepressants to help balance her emotionally. She developed physical effects ranging from skin rashes to stomach problems. She was a mess, both physically and emotionally. Tom's death caused her deep heartache and presented problems she was never prepared to handle. Pam was not very sophisticated financially when she married Tom, and he was just beginning to teach her about assets when he passed away. She didn't bring a lot of assets or income to the marriage. And mistakenly, she didn't then have the right, she felt she didn't have the right to discuss these topics. How many people feel that way? Don't put your hands up. How many people feel that way? Especially when you're in a new relationship. Many times, there are things we don't want to talk about. As I was sitting here and I was thinking about the talk and how I was going to address it and some of the issues I wanted to share with you, I said a lot of people aren't going to be very comfortable with this. And Spirit said, you're right. And how they acknowledge this, I start sneezing. That's what the sneezing was all about. One of my idiosyncrasies. And I said, well, it's not just our congregation. Many people are not comfortable with this, and more sneezing. So I know it's a difficult situation. You have to have some financial planning in your life. Most importantly, you have to have a will. You have to have a will because the way the law is set up today, if there's anything there substantially at all, the government gets to take a greater portion of it. A will is only $300 for a basic one. And if you have specific things that you want to put in it, my suggestion is you sit down and make a list of, we have 3 antique cars. My husband wants one child to have one car here, one car there, and mine, well, probably be sold, it's not that old. But, you know, I have all kinds of diamonds and rubies and amethysts and precious stones. I would like to share them. You know, I have 4 gold chains alone that each are worth $15,000. I want my kids to divide that. I don't want one person to have it. And so I've done it what they've called as a codicil in order to make sure that that individual within the will gets that appropriate thing. This is what we have to do. Unfortunately, our world has changed so dramatically. We don't have choices anymore. If you want things left to someone you truly love, you have to make sure that you do this, okay? And a basic will is $300. And if you walk in with a list of things, what they call a codicil, of the things that you want given away, it's put into the will. And it's in black and white. The other thing you need to know is that you have to have someone trustworthy in order to hand everything out in the will. And if you give them signing rights, okay, anything over $50,000, they have to register the will. Anything under $50,000 does not have to be registered. And they can literally rip off the bank accounts. You need to be aware of all of this. So you need trustworthy people in your life. My husband's dealing with an estate of someone who was 103 when she passed. And when she sold her house, it was worth substantial. She had something like $300,000 in total in her account. Plus she had diamond rings and brooches, diamond bracelets. She never had any children, so she was financially very comfortable. She went into a nursing home, and it was $3,000 a month. So a lot of the money was spent on that. The sad part is that because when she did it, she had lots of nieces and nephews. She left X number of dollars to each family member, okay? And in the process of her living to 103, which is fabulous, most of the money is gone. So my husband is executive because he was good friends with the family. And it's down now to something like the family. Each person that's in the will is going to get basically something like anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000. But there's two sisters that don't have anything that, you know, they wanted a copy of the codicil, and you get a copy of the will when you're in it, okay? But they wanted a copy of the will, then they wanted an extra copy of the original will, and they wanted a copy of the codicil, and they're holding everybody up from getting their money, okay? It's now been 2 years. So you have to be constantly on top of what you're doing, okay? And you go back every 4 or 5 years and you update your will to make sure that your loved ones and those that are your priority are taken care of. This is very important. I'm seeing more and more of this in my practice as I deal with people when they come to me for readings, and I'll say, do you have your will done? Have you done this? Have you made sure that you have someone as an executor that you can trust, that you know will do what is not only emotionally appropriate, but they've got good moral standings and will do what's appropriate for you. My kids were ripped off of their inheritance. My brother-in-law made sure that he sold the farm that they were supposed to get and then talked his mom into a cottage, and now he has it in his names, and my kids got no inheritance from their grandmother at all. You know, what goes around comes around. He's about to die. He's not very healthy, his issue. But it's sad because I know that they were supposed to get an inheritance and they didn't. Yeah, they're going to be fine. They've got me. The point I'm trying to make here is that you understand that wills are really important. And the other subject I want to talk about that people do not wish to address is death. When you have someone in your family passing, there are many ways of dealing with funerals. I advocate the simple alternative. A funeral can be done for under $1,000. When you get a supplement from the government when someone passes that helps you to pay for funerals, that's between $2,000 and $3,000, somewhere in there, and it covers most of the costs. But you know, funeral homes are big business. And they get you in there, and you are emotionally distraught. You don't know whether you're coming or going. And they sell you a bill of goods because they make you feel guilty because your loved ones died. So you can go to a simple alternative, and they will give you the basics. You can sign for it ahead of time and prepay most of your funeral. If you want to know more about it, I'd be glad to share it with you. But we've got one on Simcoe Street, we've got one in Brock, and I think it's in Pickering, and they're wonderful. That was what we used for my mother-in-law, and I have to tell you, that's what I signed up for. Okay, it can be done very simple, very, very simple. But you know, all of this needs to be taken care of, and that can be written into your will as well. so that everything is taken care of. Because when people lose someone they truly love, they become so distraught, they don't know whether they're coming or going. And so I want you to be aware that you need to address this while your loved ones and your family are alive so that you can deal with it, okay? Don't leave it to the last minute. You need to deal with it now. So I'll tell you a cute story, okay? When Tommy died, he was a police officer for 25 years, and he did not want a police funeral. 3 days before he died, he told me that we were watching the John Candy special, and he said, Al, I want you to come and watch this. And I said, Tommy, I'm studying for exams. And he said, this is important. I said, okay. So I went in and I sat down and we were watching the John Candy special, all about his funeral. And as we sat there, he said, I don't want any police officers at my funeral. And I looked at him and I said, what? You've been on the force for 25 years. Why would you say that? Well, because I'm totally unsatisfied with what they're doing and how they're changing things around and don't want it. I said, okay. He said, no. And he screamed at me, are you listening to me? And I said, yes. Should have known then that 3 days later he'd be dead, but I didn't pick up on it. Anyway, so we went on about what he wanted for the funeral and all. So I was totally devastated when he died. And we had everything in place in regards to our wills and all, because he was a very financially savvy man. We were okay. But I went to the funeral home, and I'm sitting there, and major issues with this brother-in-law that I talked about. We did not talk for the last 2 years before my husband died. And I'm sitting in the funeral home, and I had invited my mother-in-law to come with me because I felt that she needed this. I didn't need it, but she needed it, and I was trying to be respectful. So we're sitting there, and we put the ads together. And then they ask you to go in the back room to take a look at all the coffins, okay? And I also had my husband's best friend and his wife there for moral support. And we went in the back, and they started showing me all these coffins, you know, these ornate coffins and this and that. And I'm standing there, and you know, and I start crying. And my husband's best friend walked up, and he said, Al, he said, you pick out whatever you want, and I'll pay the tab. And I just looked at him, and I said, thank you. Okay. I didn't need it, but I was grateful that he loved him that much. So I'm standing there, and I'm looking around, and you have to understand, I've always had the flashy cars. My husband drove a Toyota Corolla. I'm the flash and dash. He wasn't. Anyway, I'm standing there and I'm looking around and I'm going, oh my God, I have no idea where to go here, right? Because you're feeling guilty, you're distraught. And so I stand there and I start crying, and the next thing I hear, Al, that's what Tommy called me, Al, see the box over in the corner? You're gonna burn it anyway. Why would you waste your money? I went, yes. So I turned to the funeral director and I said, you don't get it, guys. He was a Toyota man. I want the box in the corner. You're going to put the flag on it and burn it anyway, so what difference does it make? And the funeral director looked at me like I had two heads. Okay, because I was talking, right? The point of that is, because I was a medium, he stepped in and told me what to do because he knew how distraught I was. I want to show you, you don't always know what you're doing. I have the gift of being connected to the other side, so I have the gift of him coming in and sharing with me. Don't waste your money, Al. Do what's appropriate. Use the box that they're going to burn anyway, because if they're going to burn it, what difference does it make? And it's covered up by the flag, because they put the Canadian flag on it, okay? So I just want you to be aware that you need to be in charge before you get to that state. I remember how devastated I was at the time, but I have the great gift of Spirit talking to me and sharing with me. And your loved ones will do that for you when you're there, because when they first cross, they hover over you for the first 3 days, at least. So the point of the talk is that it takes a lot of courage to go through life. It takes a lot of courage to be in very difficult situations and to do the appropriate thing. And I don't want you to feel guilty, and I don't want you to feel bad later on. Because if you've got children, you may want your children to have this money instead of spending on an expensive funeral. So if you have a will, you have all the details set out that you want done, exactly how you want it done. No one can give them a hard time over it. Then you get exactly what you want, and you can go to your grave knowing that you've taken care of all of your business before you crossed. Remember, this is also your legacy and how you leave them. On that note, I'm going to close. I hope I've given you some good things to think about. Because you know what? We all end up doing it. Thank you for allowing me to share.